Thank you, Jan. I think we're going to take questions at the end. Just before I introduce our next two speakers, our discussants, I've been asked by the SCAT conference organisers just to mention, it's not allowed to take photographs even if you take them with a flash. I know they've been around and said to a couple of people, but there's only 2 of them and they can't get to everyone. So please, no photos. That's not a local thing. That's for the whole conference, I think. I'd like to introduce our 2 discussants. Myriam Menter from Germany. Myriam is still the president of ADHS Deutschland, which is a support group, an advocacy group founded following the merger of the 2 previous leading advocacy groups, but also, and very importantly, the co-founder of ADHD Europe, an association of European non-profit ADHD self-support organisations and advocacy groups. And joining her is Andrea Bilbow. Andrea is the founder and director of ADIS, the National ADHD Information and Support Service in the UK, and also a founder member of the ADHD Europe Society. So please, we'd be interested to hear your thoughts about the presentation and the survey.
Well, I think the findings actually mirror a lot of what we experience and what we know. Children with ADHD are probably some of the most unhappiest children in the modern world, and it's really not surprising. Most children take lots of things for granted, going to school, going to parties, going shopping, going on holiday. Children with ADHD just can't take this for granted. They tend to be excluded from a lot of interaction outside school, within school, etc. And I think that us as advocacy organisations, our role is to work with parents, empower parents, and get the message across to parents that they should expect more from treatment of their children. They should expect much more specialism in the diagnostics and in the treatment, and they should have lots more access to information. I think that's really, really important. We also can see from these results that our families need a lot more help in the home, and that's something that I think is sorely lacking. I think people tend to forget how much chaos there is in the home and how difficult it is, especially if you have more than one child with ADHD. And as you know, it is a genetic problem, and you often find one or even both parents may have the condition, so you can imagine what life is like with chaotic parents in a home with chaotic children. And secondly, we also need to look at education. Treating children with medication is one thing, but we need to be looking at what else we can do. Just to give medication is not enough. This is the point at which we really need to be putting so much more into place, and I think schools really need to start taking this on board. They need to start educating themselves about this condition, and they need to be supporting our children a lot more in the classroom, because this is where they spend most of their daylight hours.
Talking about Germany, we have now diagnosis and treatment for over 20 years. Still, we have not enough doctors who are able to do a proper diagnosis. We have a lot of therapies, theoretically, but in practice, you have to wait at least half a year to get a doctor starting diagnosis, and another, average 1 to 2 years to get a therapy place which is, say, suitable for you. And so, what Andrea said, we have to have more, we have to expect, and we have to ask for more. And still there's a huge lack of information and teaching everywhere. And what we figured out when we met a couple of years ago first time is pretty much the same in whole Europe. There are some exceptions, but most of the countries have the same problems. Not enough doctors being able to do a proper diagnosis, not enough therapy, an environment with teachers or preschools, sports, other families not affected, who have no clue what it is to live with one or more ADHD children, or looking at the adults having it by yourself. And so we started, and we hope to finish next year, to set up ADHD Europe. So far we have nearly 25 organizations who want to join and do it together with us. And we want to spread the word. It's not a local problem, not a regional. It's a European, and I think it's a worldwide problem. And the other thing we would like to ask you, go on networking, not only as doctors, go talk with teachers, get networking with parents. I think we need everybody to get a better life for our children.
Yeah, I think also don't underestimate the importance of the advocacy organizations, because they can be your greatest ally. There's only so much that you can do in a consulting room, but if you can work with your advocacy organizations, they can provide so much support for families, but they do need to be supported themselves. So I think it's important as clinicians that you do give your support to your local advocacy groups.
And could I just ask one question of both of you? If physicians here have contact with their local advocacy groups, and the groups in these countries aren't yet associated with ADHD Europe, is there a way for them to facilitate that?
We don't have formal email addresses yet, but they can contact either Myriam or myself, and we can make sure they get the information.
Okay, thank you. I noticed that the program guides are now being given out. I wonder if then we could revert to the previous question policy, which is always best for us because it means we can get as many questions answered as possible. And starting from now, if you have questions from the panel, if it would be possible for you to write them down on the question cards. You have pens and you have question cards, and then they can be handed in to the front before the questions, and we can answer them that way.